Hi there, my name is Sonya PauKune and I'm a professor of art and design at Ames Community College. I am currently making a set of instructional DVDs to assist students in the basic foundations of wheel throwing ceramic vessels. One of the other foundations that I think really spans both wheel throwing and hand building is how to attach a handle on a mug or a cylinder shaped form. So that's what we're going to do for our demonstration today. I've already thrown a cylinder form or a mug shape, and there's a whole different variety of mug shapes. I always have my students kind of go look in their cabinet, determine which is their favorite mug, bring it back to class, and we try to replicate it because mugs are very personal connection to the owner as well. So I have a couple examples. I have the one that I'm going to make today, which is my favorite type of mug. And then I have another example for an artist that came and did a visiting presentation at Ames before I was here, but I like drinking out of her coffee mug. It's a little bit smaller and it's a single finger handle. For my coffee mug, what I like to do is I like to try to take a shape of a soda can. So if you look, my mug is very vertical. It's pretty tall. I like to have a lot of liquid in my mug, so I make a pretty tall mug. But I could also make something very similar with a smaller size mug. Some people like smaller mugs. If you have a smaller mug and you put coffee in it, it stays warmer and you can drink it faster. So I like my mugs a little bit bigger so that the coffee or tea can cool off before I drink it. Plus, once I put ice in here, if I wanted to put a can of soda in it, it would fit. So it's perfect. The way I do it is after I get done throwing the mug and I trim it at the leather hard stage, right after I get done trimming it at leather hard, I want to attach my mug handle. And I like to pull my handles free form off of the mug. You can also pull the handle and attach it onto the side of the table, let it firm up, and then put it on your mug. And then you can also do another technique, and I have an example here of an extruded handle that was done with an extruding machine that we use in the ceramics department. And it has some ridges and more conformity to the shape, and this is for a pouring vessel. So, but I could also do that for a mug handle. So let's get started. I've already gone through the wedging process, which we have an instructional DVD based on the wedging process, so we won't revisit that. I'm just going to talk about the mug itself. Normally I want to use the same clay body for the mug as the handle. So it's like if you're painting a wall and you get one batch of paint and then you run out and you have to go back and you try to get the exact same color of paint, and sometimes it doesn't match because the person at the paint shop maybe got a drop less of the cyan red and it changed the color. With clay, you normally want the same bag of clay to be where you get your handle from. At very least, you want to make sure that they have the same shrink factor. So most clay shrinks from about 13%. Some clay bodies, like porcelains, will shrink 16%. So that, of course, could lend itself to a problem if you had two different shrink rates on your clay. So after I get done wedging the clay, I like to have a tapered handle, so I will form it into the shape of a carrot or a sweet potato. And after I get done with that, I'm just going to cut a little bit of it off using my fettling knife here. And I'm going to cut that because I don't need this huge piece of clay. Then I'm going to roll it a little bit more to get that taper. Again, that's my particular idea of a handle, is to have a little taper on it, but everybody has a different type of handle that they like. Now I'm going to take that coil and I'm going to roll it. And I got to roll my coil light and not really with a lot of pressure, not really firm on that. I'm going to roll it light and soft, and I'm flipping it around back and forth in different directions because my right hand is dominant, so naturally I'm going to press a little bit harder with my right hand. So that's why you'll see me flipping it back and forth from the left roll to the right roll. After I get done creating this nice tapered handle, it's really smooth, it looks like a carrot, I'm ready to start actually pulling my handle. So I'm going to look for any deviations. If I have maybe a little wrinkle or a fold, I'm going to rub those out and make sure that I have a nice smooth surface. Then I'm going to take the palm of my hand right here and I'm going to flatten that handle out a little bit. You can use a round handle, and I have an example of a round handle. This would be a rounded handle where it's round all the way, and you hold on to it. For mugs, you generally have a flattened handle, which would be like this one, where the mug is wider on the sides and flatter here. This is what's called a single finger mug. You can put one finger in it. I'm making a 4-fingered mug. So now I've got my taper. I'm going to take the palm of my hand and I'm going to flatten it out. And I want to flip that around. Again, I want to try to stay even. Math is a little bit like, handles are a little bit like algebra or math. You've got to do the same thing to each side if you want it to be symmetrical. So now I've got my taper. So if you look, it's a little bit wider here and a little bit thinner at this side. And the same from the front, it's wider here and it's thinner at the bottom. I like to have that taper for my mug handles. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mug and I'm going to look for any sort of deviation. You know, maybe, well, for me, this morning I actually dropped the mug a little bit and I got a small divot in the base of my foot rim. So that's where I'm going to attach my handle, is where that divot is. After I get done determining where I'm going to put it, I'm going to measure it. And I normally like to measure it from the top of the mug to the base of the form. And then I'm just going to cut it. And when I cut this, I'm going to cut away from the tapered end at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to cut down and away. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if you look, you can see how this is at a 45-degree angle. Now I'm going to clean up that whole little bottom here. Try to smooth it out a wee bit. And then I'm going to get some water, and I normally just use plain water, but you can use slip. I just use water and I rub it onto the surface. And I'm going to kind of rub that in, and you can see if I keep rubbing that surface, it actually builds up a slip. And I'm just getting the same slip from the same clay body, if you will. Then after I get done doing that, I'm going to score it. So I do these little lines, a little crazy tic-tac-toe pattern, or what's called hatching and cross-hatching. And I'm going to set this off to the side, let it firm up a little bit. Then I'm going to come back to my mug handle, and I'll go where that little deviation is. And I like my handles to go pretty much close to the top. If the handle is too low on the bottom of the mug, it messes up with the weight distribution when you're drinking out of it. So if you have a lot of liquid up here and your handle is down here, it doesn't really drink comfortably. And the function of a handled mug is to drink comfortably. So you want to make sure that you take that into consideration. So now I'm doing the same thing on my mug form. I'm taking and rubbing some water on the surface and really working it into the clay and getting a nice little layer of slip. After I get done doing that, I'm going to score it. Slip and score is the Elmer's glue of clay. So I'm going to get some nice score lines. And I'm going to score it a little bit bigger than the diameter of my handle, because I can't put score lines up underneath it after I attach the handle. But I can wipe score lines away or erase them away after I attach it. All right, so now I'm going to take my handle that I've made, and I've got the tapered end going in the direction of the top of the form so that my handle springs up from the form instead of sloping down from the form. This is really uncomfortable way of making a handle, and you would only do that if you were trying to play a joke on someone. So I'm going to hold my left hand in the inside. My right hand is holding my handle because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to jiggle and move that clay into those score lines. Then I'm going to come up underneath the bottom and kind of press it into place, use my thumb on the side, and use my other thumb to press that in. It's a little bit ugly right now, but we're going to make it prettier. Now, normally, if I was working in my production studio, I would probably do this to about 10 or 15 mugs. So I'd have a little lineup. I have another little mug that I would handle, and I would do a whole series of them. Then I would go back after a few minutes, and I would start pulling the handle. We're just going to do that now. So I'm going to clean that up just a little bit more. Because I can't really get back down to the bottom here after I attach that handle. So I want to make it as nice as possible. Then I've got this bucket of water here, and normally you would use a sink. Because I'm an environmentalist, I don't really necessarily believe in just letting the water run in the sink while you're doing this. So for my students here at Ames, they have to get a bucket to pull their handles. So now I'm going to hold my form, in this particular case it's my cylinder for my mug, in my left hand, and I can rotate it to and fro as I'm twisting the handle or pulling the handle down. And I'm actually trying to prevent it from twisting. So I'm going to dip my handle into the water, And I'm going to pull it out. Then I'm going to dip my hand in the water, and I'm going to pull the handle between the fatty part of my index finger knuckle and my thumb. And I want to make sure that I'm just squeezing ever so lightly, and I'm twisting it, pulling it in both directions. Just again, like algebra, I want to do equal things to both sides. And I just keep squeezing that. And I'm trying to get it to have a nice taper and to look as though it's growing out of the form. That's one of the reasons why I like pulling handles off the form. Now, I can also do another technique called the scissor pull, which is in between your index and your middle finger. So that might feel a little more comfortable for you. And you just pull it the same way. You just want to make sure that the edge of this handle hits the edge of your hand. Now, I could leave my handle nice and smooth like this, or I could make some ridges in it, or what's called a thumb ridge. If you look at this handle right here, you can see that this artist has 2 thumb ridges, one over here and one on that other side. I'm going to make 3 in mine. So the first thing I'm going to do is right here in the center, I'm going to line my thumb up. My fingers are all on the outside edge, and I'm going to pull down and right down the center. So I've got a nice thumb ridge right here. Sometimes if I just leave that thumb ridge there, it makes a little groove and it's a little uncomfortable for the person who's drinking out of the mug. So I like to do another set. And I do a set on the left side and then a set on the right side of the taper. And then I go once more down the middle. And then the last thing I'm going to do is a little scissor pull. And now I'm ready to attach the bottom of my handle. So I'm going to pull my handle over to the side, and you can see it's got a really lovely taper. And as I mentioned before, this is a full 4-fingered mug, so it means I'm going to be able to fit 4 fingers into the handle and hold it with my full hand. Again, when you have a mug this size, you might need a 4-fingered mug handle so that the weight distribution is good in your cup. So after I get done lining it up, I'm going to move the bottom of my tapered handle off to the side, and I'm going to do my best to line it up to the center, and I'm going to do a little slipping and scoring like we did before, a little water mixed in with the clay, rubbing it in there to build up slip. Then I'm going to score right in that area. Score a little bit more than you need to. You can always rub that out. I'm going to look at my handle. That's really a nice taper on it. Push it down here at the bottom, and I don't need all this extra clay. And students have a tendency to want to do what we call a piggy tail. Please try to avoid that. Piggy tails are very dated, but they're also kind of a nuisance in the dishwasher and in your cabinet. They can easily get broken off, and that's never good. So I normally just cut my little extra off there, do a little thumb press here, and then some more on the side. Now, I could leave that. That could be my mug handle. But I could also do some other little things up here at the top to make sure that the handle doesn't fall off. Handles have a tendency to want to fall off. So I'll do that real quick, and then we'll be done with our demo. I'll just do a little cleanup. Okay, to make the little kind of what I like to call Band-Aids, I'm going to just start with another little hunk of clay, and I'm going to roll a coil, and this coil I want to be relatively thin, probably about the diameter of a number 2 pencil. And again, I'm rolling my coil light and fast versus hard and slow. You want to go really light. If you start to get what's called a rhombus or an uneven coil where it's elliptical shaped, you might need to wedge your clay a little bit better so that does not happen to you. All right, so now I'm going to cut off some little pieces of clay, and one big piece I'm going to leave. Okay, now I'm going to clean up that little edge there, put that off to the side, and then I'm going to roll these into little balls here. Just little balls. Now, I actually like to use stamps, and there's a couple types of stamps you can use. You can obviously go and buy stamps. Here's a store-bought little stamp. This is a stamp of a cancer sign, which oddly enough is my birthstone or my birth sign. But I really like to make them. They're very, very cheap. This is just recycled clay. I've rolled a coil. I've carved some lines into the surface. I've added another stamp here on the other end. So I have 2 stamps, so it's multi-functional. If it drops and breaks, no big deal. I'll make another one. So now we'll go back to our mug. Sometimes I like to let the mug dry upside down for a few minutes so that I can get that nice flow from my handle of the top to the bottom. Now I'm going to take this little piece of clay right here, and since this is really fresh and I just got done pulling the handle, I can just attach it. If I had to go and get a cup of coffee and then come back, I would put a little slip into that seam. But for me, I can just set it here. Now I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to kind of press that in, and then I'm going to take one of my little balls of clay, try to make sure they're the same size, and I'm going to do another little decorative ball of clay here, and then I'll do one more and we'll put the stamp in it. So then I'll set this one here on the edge. I'll take this little stamp and I'll press the stamp into there, and you can see it just gives a little bit of pattern and texture, a little relief. Then I will do the same on this other side. Put my little stamp and get my little pattern. All of this stuff here I would need to clean up with my tools. That's where I had the extra score lines. If I wanted to clean this bottom part up, I could. I normally just like to keep it a little bit softer and smoother. I don't necessarily like to clean it where it looks like there's no connection there, but some artists do. That's a personal preference. And then the last thing I want to do is a little security down here at the bottom. So I'll take my same little balls of clay, and I will do, actually just for fun, let's see what this little crab stamp looks like. Ah, not too bad. That's kind of cute. Alrighty. And then the very last thing that I would do is the same thing that I do on all my pottery, is I want to sign my name to the bottom. So again, for myself, my initials are PW for PauKune Warner, which is the name of my husband and I studio. And there you go. Nice little handle for my new coffee mug. Excellent. Have a great day and enjoy your throwing and making beautiful ceramic vessels. Thanks a lot.